Hello and welcome to a brand new season of the Birding Diaries. As you may have seen, last year my co-host Mongezi left the show and we've been looking long and hard for a new co-host. And I'm very pleased to announce our new co-host, Shannon Rogotsky.
Thanks, Doug. It's absolutely awesome to be here. I can't wait to drain your brain and learn about the birds.
I get absolutely mobbed on social media all the time, so yeah, it is what it is. But yes, a brand new show, new content, new format, and back to the studio. First, some news. So I'm sure you have found over the years, you buy a new bird book, you get the latest update of your app, and you found the names have changed.
It drives me crazy. When do you think they're going to stop?
No, exactly. And who knows, some conspiracy theorists say they won't because they sell more books, but that's for another day. But yeah, I mean, some of the names, obviously, they name birds for various ornithological reasons, particularly if they split one species into 3 or 4. The new species out of that split all need names. And then obviously that understand new family relationships, all this sort of stuff. But then you get funny names. I mean, you've got red-capped robin chat, and there isn't even any red on the head. Yeah, so, but the funniest one for me always has been, you get little egret, and that's actually not even the smallest egret we have. Then you get great egret, and then there's an egret somewhere in the middle. So what do they decide? Intermediate egret. I mean, that's just the most bizarre name. But the news is that IOC have decided in their wisdom to change the name. It's no longer intermediate egret. It's now going to be medium egret.
Oh man, what's going to be next? The not so little egret.
Exactly, or not quite as big as the great egret. Yes, so yeah, so that's really bizarre. But anyway, that's one of the name changes affecting us in Southern Africa coming up soon.
Great. So I have got great news. I'm sure you've seen all over social media. Swarovski is about to launch AI in their new model, the AX Visio. So I think it's a great idea. I think, but not 100% sure about the price. I mean, the technology is you pick up the binoculars, you look at the bird, and it tells you what it is. Do you think this is a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose let's look at a couple of things first off. It's driven on top of Merlin's AI identification technology, which is very sound, works very well. And in Europe and the US, where the data is populated well for all their species, works brilliantly. I have seen people in Southern Africa using apps that are driven on top of Merlin's AI, and Merlin doesn't have decent data yet for Southern Africa. It's not a reflection on their technology. The data needs to be populated into their model. And I've seen some horrendous IDs because of this. So obviously in a year or 2 or 3, when Merlin's really done the groundwork on putting in the data for Southern Africa, brilliant, and I think it'll work really well. The second misgiving I have is that the binoculars are 8x35, and obviously they can't make this massive chunky product. They've got to get a battery, they've got to get electronics in. So they've kept them, I think, 8x35 to keep the weight down. But any birder who knows their optics knows that's a bit small. And you generally want a 42, a 10 by an 8 by 42. So there's that. And then I think the final issue for me is that advanced birders who have Swarovski binoculars for the most part generally don't need AI, and they enjoy the challenge of learning bird ID for themselves. However, because these are aimed at the beginner, and the beginner is most likely to be the person who wants to have AI help them with their bird ID, if you look at the price of the NL Pures and then equate to what those will be when they land in South Africa, I think they're probably going to be about 100 grand. I'm not quite sure how many beginners are dropping 100 grand on binoculars.
Now, we did that poll in the community, and most of them were saying they'd have to win the lottery first.
Yeah.
And also, I think it takes away from the birding experience. I mean, it's all fun about learning, and if you've got something telling you all the time, it's not, the discovery is actually finding out what that bird is and actually discovering for yourself, because that's how you actually learn.
Yes.
I'm still keen to try it, though. I really want to see it. I think this is obviously the new age technology we're coming forward. And if Swarovski's listening, I'll definitely enjoy giving that one a go. And we'll make an opinion then.
actually, talking of binoculars and identification and names and listing stuff, I saw the most dramatic news the other day on Facebook.
Yeah.
There is a global birder by the name of Peter Kastner, and he has just ticked his 10,000th bird.
I know, that's incredible. I mean, geez, this guy must have so much time. Where does he actually find the time to find this many birds?
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, there aren't even 11,000 birds. So he's got less than 1,000 of all the birds in the world left to see. I mean, I'm so envious of a life list like that.
Yeah, but what does he do for a living that he is able to do something like this?
I don't know, but I mean, can you imagine the places he's been and the things he's seen?
Yeah, no, that's incredible, yeah. Just base your whole life around following the birds around the globe. That must be incredible.
No, exactly. And I mean, he must be a phenomenally talented birder.
Yeah, talking about amazing places. Doug recently went to Borakalalo, and if you're looking for a place where you go and you're not having hundreds of people hanging over your shoulder looking at the same birds, this is the place to go.
Barokalalo National Park is one of Northwest Park's best kept secrets. And one of the best birding sites in wider Gauteng. And once you get inside, what awaits you will take your breath away. So it's about 5:30 in the morning, just waiting for Barokalalo to open. Honestly, in my opinion, one of the best reserves in wider Gauteng. Truly phenomenal birding spot. You can easily get 140, 150 bird species in a day, and some good stuff not easily found elsewhere in wider Gauteng. So yes, just waiting for the staff to open the gate. Lovely sunrise, and we'll see how the day pans out, but I think it's going to be good. See, unfortunately today wasn't the best experience checking in. I'm not sure the exact reason, but we took 2 hours to get in from when we arrived. Not a massive queue, but yeah, it did take a while. So yeah, but as you can see, lovely weather behind me after the heavy rains of last night. The reserve should be good. Hopefully we'll still get a good number of species, even though we got in a little bit later than we planned. And yeah, good stuff around the gate, and time to bird. Calling in the background, a grey-tit flycatcher. It's definitely one of the birds you come to Barokalalo to find if you can. Not always easy to see, being a flycatcher kind of warbler type behaviour. They tend to stick around in the trees. Not always easy to actually get visuals on, but we'll see if we can get a visual on this one. And yeah, it's one of the specials of wider Gauteng that's not easy to get anywhere else. So there you go, very skittish, not easy to get long views of, but that's great at flycatcher. So That's one Gauteng special in the bag. Onward and off to the Morotele Bridge. We're just below the dam wall, and yes, people do say that there are possibly finfoot in the river here. Yes, there are, but not here. You'll see it's too busy, but you know, the water's flowing too fast and too turbulent. They like it quiet, but you have to stop at this bridge. This is one of the birding hotspots within Barokalalo, and come with me, I want to show you something. Okay, so this is one of my secret little spots at Barokalalo on the Morotele River. Gonna go through some bush and find a really nice lookout over the Morotele River that not too many people know about. So this is the spot on the Morotele River. Cracking views right on the riverbank, you're nice and secluded, brilliant place to see herons. Maybe if you're really lucky, even a white-backed night heron. Maybe not, they're hard to get here, but there's always a chance, you never know. Busy looking at a massive Goliath heron. Not as common as the other herons in Gauteng, but this particular spot on the Morotele River, this bend, certainly this summer, this heron has been staking out this spot as its feeding ground. So yeah, beautiful to watch. Stunning and really massive bird. So obviously you know Barokalalo is famous for finfoot. And if you look at this quieter backwater section of the Morotele River, this is absolutely perfect. Obviously they're skittish, you never know exactly where and when on the Morotele River you're going to get finfoot. But if you keep checking spots as you go along the river below the dam wall, you do stand a chance, although realistically on my attempts, probably 1 in 5 visits, but it's worth a check. But this is perfect finfoot habitat. So this is another interesting spot at Barokalalo. This is the quarry, and this rock was cut out and used to make the dam wall. What's interesting here is you're going to get a lot of birds, and there's actually one calling in the background now, that prefer rocky sort of areas. So there's a cinnamon-breasted bunting calling. And this is also quite a good spot if you check the trees against the skyline. Look for striped pipit, they're often here. This little spot will get you a couple of birds on a day here at Barokalalo. You're not going to get anywhere else. So yeah, let's see what we get. Look for striped pipit. So seeing it's disused, we took a chance and popped into the old Ornithological Rangers camp at the Morotele River. And I think you can get a sense what this place must have been like in its heyday. I mean, absolutely beautiful spot, idyllic spot really. Lovely deck overlooking the river, and you can imagine what it must have been like when this place was in good condition. Sitting here on the deck overlooking the river, looking for finfoot. I mean, absolute paradise. But yeah, just a pity it's in the state it's in now, but still a marvelous place. As you can see with driving below the dam wall, this place is incredibly overgrown. What it does give you, however, is an incredible sense that people hardly ever come here. And even though we're only 2 hours drive from Joburg, I almost feel like I'm in northern Botswana or somewhere like that. It's really just, it gives you a sense of remoteness, of isolation, and being completely and utterly undisturbed. And that's what I really love about Barokalalo, particularly at the moment with it not being as popular as it used to be in its heyday. I mean, I really feel like I'm driving hundreds of k's from the nearest person. Absolutely amazing. Gidoniane hard. Also a good place to stop at. Some nice stuff can be seen here. Dwarf bittern, sometimes you're lucky enough to get lesser moorhen. So yeah, you do get some cool birds here, worth having a stop. And after there's been rain, there's always some pans on the other side of the hide, and that attracts some of the water birds like the dwarf bittern, lesser moorhen, etc. So yeah, well worth a stop if you're prepared to drive this far below the dam wall. So we've stopped at the picnic site in the broadleaf woodland below the dam wall. This is the heart of this amazing broadleaf woodland, and you don't get too much of this in wider Gauteng. As we stopped, we got an amazing mayor's parrot, which is really sought after for wider Gauteng. So that was awesome to see. But you probably wonder why we got some fire going here and this table is full of stuff. We decided we're going to do creamy garlic mussels with toasted ciabatta for lunch. And no, this isn't a cooking show, so I'm not about to now demonstrate how it's cooked. But yes, time to break for lunch, and hopefully it'll be a really delicious lunch compared to my run-of-the-mill tuna mayo sandwiches I always make for myself when I go birding. Yeah. We finished below the dam wall, going to do a brisk drive back to the gate and then do the drive along the water's edge to finish off the day. So yeah, the morning piece has been good, and let's see what the afternoon holds. So a group of white-breasted cormorant. They're by far the most common cormorant, outnumbering reed cormorant significantly on the water's edge here at Barokalalo. And in particular, if you pay careful attention, you shouldn't confuse a juvenile reed cormorant with a white-breasted, because the white-breasted cormorant is huge, it's massive, it's probably 3 times the size. So yeah, a nice group of them. In the heat, you can see some of them panting. Yeah, very common water bird here. As you can see, Barokalalo, particularly the water's edge, often involves driving these roads that at the moment are so unkept and so overgrown that only if you've been here and you know where the road goes can you actually drive them. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend this if you've never done the shoreline road before. But yeah, if you have, still good birding. So the last of your main habitat types at Barokalalo, once you've done the water's edge and you've done the broadleaf woodland below the dam wall, is this typical acacia savanna. And this is where you'll find the likes of crimson-breasted shrike, southern white-crowned shrike, Kalahari scrub robin, red-crested kahan. There's some good birds in this area, and to be honest, I haven't had much time in the day here to visit all 3 of the areas thoroughly. I honestly think actually if accommodation could be sorted out here, that I think it would actually take 2 days to do Barokalalo true justice. But even in a day visit you can still get 145, 150 birds for the day. But yes, you have 3 main habitat types and each of them take time to bird properly. that wraps up an awesome day at Barokalalo. We've covered most of the habitats, very hot, but the birding was good. And I think you have some sense of what it'll be like if you visit the reserve. But just because we've left the reserve doesn't mean the birding is finally over. There is always the Assen Police Station Road, going to go home that way, and that offers you the last handful of birds that you didn't get in the reserve that you might see on your way home. So let's go and take a look at the Assen Police Station Road. And that is why you drive the Assen Police Station Road. If you're going to have a chance of getting southern carmine bee-eater anywhere in wider Gauteng, Assen Police Station Road never fails to deliver, and they're here in good numbers again. So yes, technically a reportable rarity for wider Gauteng, but they're fairly common on Assen Police Station Road, and what an absolutely stunning bee-eater. Really spectacular. So yeah, that ends an absolutely phenomenal day. Whenever I do this area, I always do Barokalalo, I do Assen Police Station Road, and time the end of the day to finish at this absolutely stunning bridge over the river going into the Rodokoppies Dam. And it really just rounds off an awesome day in a phenomenal area. I reckon if you're going to Barokalalo, you need to add on these two areas, and every time I go, it just leaves me in awe of not only the beauty of Barokalalo, the isolation, the peace, but this whole area, and finishing off at this bridge, which I think has some of the best sunsets. So yeah, I don't know what else to say other than just you have to try this trip, you have to put these three sites together, and what a day we had.
So sometimes we're in the field, the bush, and we experience something we've never seen before. And if we're lucky enough to get it on video, all the better. And if you do, please could you share this with us so we can actually let all our other viewers see it and actually have this experience as well. One of the greatest in the field experiences I had was at Sterkfontein Dam at the Wild Horses Lodge overlooking the dam. I was one morning walking around, and all of a sudden I noticed these two birds. And they were on the stick, and this male was doing this most elaborate little dance. I had never seen this before. And then I realized it was the Malachite sunbirds. And I was absolutely flabbergasted in their actual behavior and what they were doing. Initially, I didn't understand it. But once I recorded it and I sent it off, everybody came back and they were like, wow, this is something we haven't seen before. So please, record these experiences and share them with us so we can show all our other viewers.
Yeah, and I also had an amazing experience while out birding. A lot of you people who've birded a lot of Gauteng fairly extensively will know Zachkaelsdrift Road, and it's famous for crakes, and specifically Crake Road is famous for the number of crakes that you can possibly see along this road. I was out with a group of birders and we came across this African crake that shot out from the grass. Normally very skittish. We saw it come out. As it saw us, it darted back in. So we parked the car, we switched off, we were quiet and we waited, and this crake came out and just wandered up and down the sand on the edge of the road. Absolutely amazing experience. So yes, as mentioned, we'd like to feature your content too. The show isn't only about us telling you what we've seen. We'd like to highlight your amazing experiences. So if you've got anything, you can share it with us on Facebook. You can email it to us at info@simplybirdingafrica.co.za. But share your stuff, and it's your chance to have your experiences shared with our wider community.
been lucky enough to live in the Crocodile River Reserve for the last 24 years. Although we only recently became a reserve to protect these grasslands in 2019, when I first came here, there was no pom-pom weed. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Crocodile River Reserve consists of 3,500 hectares of Egoli granite and Cartonville dolomite grassland, which stretches from the R512 to the R511. The Egoli granite and Cartonville dolomite grasslands are 2 of 5 grasslands found within the Magaliesberg biosphere, all of which are under intense pressure from urban invasion and the pom-pom weed. For the last 8 years, I've watched with growing concern this deadly invasion coming in from the perimeters of our reserve. Originally imported into South Africa from Argentina in bales of horse feed, this deadly weed kills the grasslands by forming dense rosettes of leaves at ground level, which actually stunt the germination and growth of other species. But to top that, it excretes allele chemicals which actually adversely affect the growth of grasses around it. Declared a Category 1B weed, this is enemy number 1. Today we have Franca from the Crocodile River Reserve. She's responsible for what we are doing to eliminate this purple pest. Hi Franca, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi Shannon, and thank you so much for joining the fight against the pink beryl.
So start off, please explain to us, what is a Category 1B weed?
Okay, can I be technical for a minute? We have to start with the legislation. The National Environmental Management Biodiversity Act, Act number 10 of 2004, was promulgated to preserve the biodiversity of our country. As such, it also then governs anything to do with alien invader plants. The Act divides or categorizes all invader species into 4 categories. Category 3 is the one where plants are potentially very invasive, but they are allowed to stay in place where they are. A good example would be the lovely jacarandas in Pretoria. However, when they go outside of their range, they have to be treated as a more serious problem. A Category 2 is a plant or a species that has some commercial value, and so therefore they can be allowed to be planted and kept, but with a permit, and they're not allowed to be kept or planted outside of a certain area. Category 1A are plants that are or species that are particularly invasive, and they have to be removed immediately. There's no question asked. They have to be removed. And then finally, the Category 1B, which is where the pom-pom sits, are extremely invasive plants that have to be removed, but you can do it according to a management plan.
Okay.
And that is where the pom-pom sits. So we have a plan for it, not always extensive, not completely covering all the areas, but as long as we work according to this plan, we won't be in trouble with government, who can give us quite stiff fines if they want to.
Yeah, I believe so. So tell me something, what are we doing to combat the pom-pom weed in the Crocodile River Reserve?
Shannon, I'm going to start by telling you about the different methods of eradication. There's of course the very simple one, which is removing all the the seeds and burning them in a suitable way. It's the least desirable method because it's time consuming, and it has to be followed up, because the minute you cut the seed, it actually acts as, when we prune a fruit tree, we stimulate growth. So it stimulates the growth, and therefore you've got to follow it up every now and again. The next method is removing the plant physically, and that is a very good method when it comes to areas like wetlands or along the riparian areas of streams and rivers, because then we don't have to contaminate the water with with herbicides. So that's a very good method. However, one has to make sure that the entire plant comes out.
Yeah.
Shannon, and I'd like to show you what I mean when I say we have to remove the entire plant. We've got to make sure that the rootstock crown is removed, and this little area where the main stem and the roots
Splits off. Okay.
yeah, are attached, that is what we have to get out. If we just pull it out and we don't get that bit out, we stimulate growth,
And then
and just comes back.
Sure, this is terrible. It's like amazing how these things spread.
Yes.
And what other methods are we using?
Okay, so the one that we use most is chemical control, where there are several herbicides that have been registered for control of pom-pom. What we've done is chose one of the ones that are least harmful to the grassland.
Yes.
So the one we use only kills broadleaf plants.
Okay.
But it has repercussions. You've got to make sure that you don't affect other plants. So you can't spray when the wind is high, because then you may affect other desirable plants. But it doesn't kill the grasses.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the one we use. And then there are several biological control methods. One of the ones that we've just placed, particularly in this field that's behind us, and it may look as though it's not that effective, but it works over a long time. So we need 3 or 4 years before we could really say, yes, it worked properly, or no, it didn't. The Liothrips tractabilis is a gall-forming tiny little insect which we've placed in this field. And here's one that has affected the plant quite dramatically. As you can see, the growth is very gnarly, especially here where this flower
that is dramatic. I mean, these are standing upright.
Yes.
And this is curled up in a little ball almost.
Yes. And a lot of the seeds here will not be viable. I'm not so sure about this one, but where you look at this, the flowers are very stunted, and they won't have viable seeds. So the control or the spread of the plant is controlled. What's interesting is that this plant also shows signs of a rust fungus that was imported from, I think, Brazil, Argentina and Uruguay.
How did that come in? Was it purposely brought in here, or did we also come in like by a feed or something like that?
No, the rust fungus was specifically imported for the
was.
control of the pom-pom.
Oh, okay, so it's another bioagent.
It's another biological agent, you're quite correct. However, we didn't place it here.
Okay.
So it got here by itself. it spread with wind.
And it only targets the pom-pom?
Only targets the pom-pom. So also one of the other things that we have at our disposal. It overwinters, fortunately, very readily. The other one, the little thrips, doesn't overwinter readily. So we need to find a way of making sure that they stay alive during winter so we can place them very early in the next growing season. That makes them most effective because the little plants, the smaller new plants, really cannot fight it off effectively, whilst the more mature plants are able to fight back.
So now what's stopping these little guys from jumping off and killing all the other plants?
They are species specific, and what that means is that they only feed on the pom-pom weed. So yes, they can jump off, but they will not find food for themselves. So they will either find another pom-pom plant or they will die.
So this is very much like the bioagents they're using with the hyacinth in the dams.
Yes, correct. Yes. Very similar to that.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah. And then finally there's a moth which hasn't been released en masse yet. It was approved for release in 2015, but they had problems with permitting and then re-imported it in 2019 or 2021, I think. So this moth is quite different to these in that it attacks only the flowers. They approved it for release in 2015, but because they had problems with permitting, they only re-imported it in 2021. So the moth is interesting in that it attacks the flowers specifically. It lays its eggs in the pink flower. The larvae then feeds on the flower, on the seeds of the flower. So in that way, it controls the spread. And the larvae are very cute. They're pink. They're little, tiny little pink things.
Do you think they're for camouflage or something like that?
Yes,
That's incredible.
be. So unfortunately, they haven't got a way of mass rearing the moth yet. So we can't do a mass release of it quite yet. But it is just another method that is on the way.
Well, thank you. That was incredibly insightful. I mean, I'm definitely looking at this from a whole new perspective. I thought it was just the herbicides and cutting off the heads that we were dealing with, but it's incredible to learn that we're getting so advanced in this war that we are actually fighting, and it is a war. And as you can see, in a lot of cases, it's landowners that are actually funding this, and it costs a fortune. And the problem we sit with these abandoned properties, such as this one, where it's been overwhelming. And it's a constant battle. And obviously, who has to do this? We have to come in here as landowners and fund it and get it going and start. And it's an ongoing fight. And this is why I'm reaching out to you. And if you feel that you would like to get involved in something like this, please look at funding and helping fund the Crocodile River Reserve in labour so that we can get working on this and get control of it and preserve these incredible grasslands for generations to come.
Welcome to the controversial part of our show. Obviously, birding is fun. We go out there, we see stuff, but birders can be very sensitive people, and we all have our different personal interpretations on how we bird. And of course, these debates can get quite heated and quite personal. And the topic Shannon and I are going to talk about today is pin sharing. And what do we mean by that? And that is, you go out, you've seen something, you log it in a birding app, whether it's Birder, whether it's Birdlasser. Do you share the GPS coordinates of that bird with the wider community so that other people can go and see them? I mean, what is your feeling on the topic?
I think it's very controversial, number one. The bottom line is conservation should be key, especially if it's an endangered species like the African grass owl or anything that is on the endangered list. I think you've got to be very careful about how you do it. I mean, the problem is, I've seen a lot is people, can be out in the field and they can be totally walking around with blinkers on, like they don't have any focus on what the reality is around them and what they could be stomping on or actually destroying in the field. And I think that's something that is never taken into consideration, especially if you've got 100 birders there now. It's very controversial, especially if you end up with a whole lot of birders in an area and they're tramping through the grasses, and these grasses are actually essential for these birds to survive in, and you start destroying the habitats. I think it's something that has to be very carefully managed.
Yeah.
And I think just putting your pin out there, you have to consider the consequences of what you might be bringing, especially when you see some of these people in their rarities and next thing you've got 100 birders there. I think it's a very sensitive situation, especially with regard to the environment.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, let's take what we discussed earlier in the show, where we were talking about pom-pom weed. I mean, your shoe.
Yeah.
You can simply, by charging off into some grass, you've been somewhere else, you can introduce pom-pom weed into an area that never had it before. And it's not only that. I mean, the way some birders behave, I mean, there have been dramatic examples at rare bird twitches. I'm talking going back to Maury Vale in the early 2000s, where impatient birders pulled down a farmer's fence and all stormed his property because they couldn't wait.
No, that's ridiculous. And when you talk about transversing and trampling and bringing in seeds from other environments like the pom-pom weed. A classic example is actually the African grass owl. They specifically need to have a Pacific grass to breed in, and it's called cotton wool grass. And there's not much of this left. And if we are now introducing pom-pom weed to this situation and it kills the grass around it, what is the future of the African grass owl?
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think the thing is, birders need to just, I suppose, chill would be the best word I can think of. But
no, I think they've got to be more respectful. I
Yeah.
think some people just need to be respectful. And then at the end of the day, if you decide that you don't want to share a pin, that's up to you. But it's your belief system in conservation, and how far are you prepared to go?
yeah, and I think the key thing is nobody actually has the right to see a bird. You know, if it's on private property and no one wants to invite you, you know, it's like not being invited to a birthday party.
No.
Throwing your toys out the cot makes no sense. And, you know, it's, if someone shares it with you, great. But if they don't, it's their endeavor. And I don't think it's fair to publicly bash birders because they won't give you a pin. You don't have the right to it.
I think the bottom line is conservation.
Yeah.
It has to be the number one point.
So that was the last section for our new format of the show, Talking Point. We're always going to try and end our show on something controversial to give you something to think about and discuss. And hopefully the show has added value to your birding. Thanks for watching. As usual with YouTube, please subscribe, please like this video, share it with your friends, and thanks for watching.
Thanks a lot. See you next time.
Down in the broadleaf woodland below the dam wall. We're going to do a brisk drive back to the gate, and then we're going to tackle the water's edge.
And although we only recently became a reserve in 2019, and to protect these grasslands, I have to say, I never saw pom-pom weed when I first came here. Sorry. I got myself tight.